Good morning, one and all. In the first lecture, we have dealt with the steps in planning up to development of program goals, objectives, and activities. Then we are going to the second lecture of the remaining steps in planning. They are resource identification. What is meant by resource? The term resources is widely used in health planning. It implies to the manpower, money, materials, skills, knowledge, techniques, and time needed or available for the performance or support of action directed towards specified objectives. So, as we know, that determining the priorities or having objectives will make sure the next step of going to the resource identification. What are resource identification? They are the criteria that should be used for the resource identification are appropriateness, adequacy, effectiveness, and efficiency. What is meant by appropriateness? The most suitable resource to get the job done. That is, whatever the things you are been identifying that should have the appropriate procedure or appropriate thing to get the job to be done. What is adequacy? The extent or degree to which the resources would complete the job. Effectiveness. How capable the resources are at completing the job. And efficiency is in terms of not only money and the time which we spend in completing the job. So these are the 4 features that should be seen in every resource identification that the job to be completed. How to identify the resources? In this flowchart, we will show regarding the resource identification worksheet. In the left column, there are the resources and where the resources can be identified like a source. In the resources like personal, equipment, or supplies, or dental health education materials, these are the resources. And what are the sources they are and how they are being identified. In the personal, like sponsors or supporters are the clinical providers. The sources where we can identify the resources are public health organizations, professional dental organizations, dental or dental hygiene schools, industry, health consumer groups, government, labor, media, business, and foundations, public schools, or in the clinical providers like dentists, dental hygienists, dental assistants, physician assistants, nutritionists, social workers, health aides, or public health nurses, dental technicians. These are the sources where the resource of clinical providers or the sponsors and supporters can be identified. Likewise, the non-clinical providers, where the planning or clerical job or the educational or analytical job that can be planned by the sources of identifying, they are health planning agencies, volunteers, students, professional organizations, and consulting firms or retirees. And the equipment that are the resource that should be identified like the source are dental supply companies, dental and dental hygiene schools, renovated public health clinics, hospitals, federal government depositories that might be useful for providing the equipment. And also not with the dental equipment, the computers or the calculators or the filing cabinets where the business or the industry or civic groups or the hospitals can be a source for the resources. And the supplies might be like, for example, of office supplies or dental supplies where the consumer groups, industries, or the government, or the dental supply companies, or the dental product companies are the sources for giving the resources. And dental health education materials where the associations or the facilities where the resources might be identified with the sources of finding the American Dental Associations or the Indian Dental Associations or the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, hospitals, health centers, nursing schools, public schools, or the dental schools, or the industries, or the health maintenance organizations, which might be a resource for providing the program that is planned. And the 5th step is identifying the constraints. Then name itself denotes that if there is any constraint in the program that is going on, like it might be due to the shortage in the labor or in the lack of funding or restrictive government policies or inadequate transportation systems or negative attitudes which might be a constraint in doing a program or planning a program. So how to identify these constraints and how to overcome them? So we are going for the sixth step of identifying the alternative strategies. What are the alternative strategies or should be identified if there is a constraint that has been happened? For example, for identifying an alternative strategy, I'll give an example like in a rural setup where adequate transport facilities are not available. So how to plan a dental program in that rural setup? So in setting a clinic, it becomes difficult to have a fixed clinic in the rural setup. So we can plan with the transportation difficulties or with the provision of the fixed dental clinic in that area, we can have a mobile dental clinic, which might be an alternative strategy in doing the service. And going to the seventh step is development of implementation strategy. How to develop an implementation strategy? These are the following things that should be followed in implementing a plan or a program. That is why, what, who, when, how much, why, the effect of the objective to be achieved. That is one of the first implementation strategy. Why should be used and what, the activities required to achieve the objective, and who, the individuals responsible for each activity, and when, it is chronological sequence of activities, and how and what are the materials, methods or techniques that should be used, and how much, the cost of estimate of materials and time. So in the implementation strategy, you should follow all the things like why, what, who, when, how and how much. Coming to eighth step of implementation. Implementation is done by 4 phases. For any type of program, if you are planning, you should have these 4 phases. The first phase is pilot phase, and the second one is control phase, and the third one is actualization phase, and the fourth phase is operational. So what is pilot phase? Pilot phase is a trial or error basis phase. So if we are going to plan a program, we should have a pilot phase with a smaller sample where we are planning a program. Control phase. Control phase is a model where a particular program or strategy is run under regulated conditions to judge its effectiveness. So it will give the judgment how effective the program is going on. The third phase is actualization phase. The actualization phase is a model where the program strategy is subjected to realistic operating conditions. So it is the actual thing that is going on. The fourth phase is operational phase. It gives the ongoing part of the structure whether the program is going in a correct way or not. Coming to the rules of implementation. So if we are planning a program, these rules of implementing a program should be done. Number 1 is specify clearly what activity is going on. That is, who does and what and from whom it is done. And the second one is be sure someone is responsible for the whole activity and coordinates individuals who may carry out the different tasks. So we should coordinate and he should be responsible what type of activity is going on and what tasks are going on. Identify all preparatory steps before doing that activity. For example, prepare a training manual, prepare the materials, and write an article to acquire the equipment, train the volunteers, determine the protocol, and we should have the list of steps in order, so which is going to be planned accordingly. Check for missing step, so that must be added, and also determine the date when to begin and when to end. Check the dates to make sure that the correct amount of time has been allowed, and if there are, consult the organizations for identifying the potential problems or opportunities and so on, and having the resources with the sources that should be identified, and if there are any constraints that should be addressed, that should be made up, and make sure all the people are involved and what is expected from them, and by when we are going to make the program successful should be planned accordingly. Coming to ninth step, it is monitoring. It refers to the maintenance of an ongoing watch over the activities of a health service. It not only denotes the watching but also using the observations as the basis of continual modification of goals, plans or activities is done by monitoring. So the data which is being typically collected for monitoring includes input data, process data and output data. What is input data? Input data is the financial reports or the personnel or the vacancies that are being existing, transportation records, equipment and the supplies purchased are shown in the input data. And what is process data? They are the activities that are being done and also carried out by timely basis. It is said as the process data. What is the output data? What are the services or goods that are being provided for the target population that has been served is said as the output data. So in the monitoring, the entire process of the steps in planning are shown with the basis of a continual modification if there are in the plans or activities or goals that should be achieved. This is an ecological approach of the comprehensive health planning chart. By this, we are ending the steps in planning. In the next class, we are going to deal with the evaluation. Thank you.